So when I was on Jimmy Dore, I was able to highlight what was going on in Maui. And what is going on in Maui, Lahaina in particular, is really, really sad. I went 30 days after the fire and then 100 days after the fire. And big ups to my friend Matt Weinglass from the Homeless Left, who's also been following up on this story with different journalists all over the place. Nick Sorter has been going over there, but I think we have two different styles. For me, he's playing too much into it's Biden's fault. It's the federal government. Trump will be better. But I wanted to highlight a lot of things, not so much how the fire started, because I know a lot of people are going to have different opinions about that. We touched up on that. We talked to people who look at geoengineering, direct energy weapons, lasers, the whole nine yards, natural disasters. But we concentrated so much on what was going on with the people there. The most important thing that we realized that we needed to highlight is the fact that there's a serious lack of transparency. And when a disaster happens in a community, it's important that you have transparency across the board for everything. The people must be involved. This tells you right here, Maui businesses are supposed to have priority for wildfire cleanup jobs. Do they? That is the question. The problem is that there is no transparency. The California-based principal contractor working on Lahaina wildfire debris removal is refusing to share information on which subcontractors it is hiring for the job. That is making it difficult to evaluate the extent of involvement by local companies, even though months ago, county and federal officials touted cleanup effort as providing needed jobs for Maui, and local companies were important for cultural sensitivity. And now I want to point this. Obvious when they talk about these things, you want the locals to participate in the jobs themselves, right? They can stay there if they're participating in the cleanup and they're getting paid for it. You can just imagine it, right? So you have these wildfires, have this disaster zone. You have to have a cleanup. You use the citizens, use local businesses, along with all like the Army Corps engineer and whatnot, who got the main contractor. But the governor, the mayor, some lawmakers in Hawaii touted that they're going to have local businesses involved. A handful of Maui companies have confirmed to Civil Beat they are subcontractors working on the second phase of the wildfire debris removal under the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers contract with the Environmental Chemical, the prime contractor based in the San Francisco Bay Area. But ECC, which is the Environmental Chemical Corporation, won't identify their subcontractors publicly, and the Corps of Engineers can't compel them to do so. ECC Vice President Glenn Sweat declined to supply a list of subcontractors after a request by Civil Beat, and the Corps said it isn't legally authorized to release a list. So they're going by a technicality. And this is what I'm talking about. You need transparency across the board in every single phase of the cleanup, in every single phase of disaster relief. What we need are sunshine laws to be hard and to be relevant and to make sure that the public is involved. Maui County referred a request for information on the use of local subcontractors to the Corps. And the Maui Chamber of Congress did not respond to request for comment. Maui County referred a request for information on the use of local subcontractors to the Corps, and the Maui Chamber of Commerce did not respond to request for comment. So you could, Chamber of Commerce isn't responding. They're kind of going mum's the word. Governor Josh Green selected the Corps of Engineers in late August to spearhead debris removal from Lahaina and the Kula fire zones, and ECC was named as the prime contractor under the Corps Advanced Contract Initiative, a system for pre-qualifying companies for deployment in disasters. Now, I want to talk about that really quickly right here. You can see it right here. For pre-qualifying, and it's called the Advanced Contract Initiative. This is when my libertarian friends really have a lot of backbone and a lot of evidence to back up their thought process that government gets too much involved. That is pretty much a database, a contractors list picked by the government in which who the Army Corps of Engineers can use as some contractors. How do you get on that list, right? I'm sure there's a lot of inside kind of greasing of the wheel to be a part of that list. I can't say for sure because a lot of these things are done behind closed doors and done in the dark, but that's what they're going for. We pick these companies over here because we have this initiative contracting list, and you can click on it. I looked at it, and it pretty much just says it goes to the Army Corps Engineer page website, and it says it's a database list in which all these companies qualify at the test for disaster relief. So you got to be in the in crowd to get these jobs in the first place. Green, Maui Mayor Richard Bison, who I met in person. I wasn't able to bring a camera in and ask questions. They had no cameras, but I was able to shake his hand, talk to him, look him in the eye, and say, I want to do whatnot. This is something with him and Representative Jill Takuda all spoke then of the need of cultural awareness and sensitivity and inclusion of local companies in the wildfire recovery and remediation process. So here's what they're talking about. It's not just about getting these local companies and the locals to be involved in the process so the money stays in Maui. It's also about what they called the cultural awareness. In other words, that Maui is very specific and unique, the island itself, and we can't bring in contractors from the mainland because they don't understand the environment of Maui. And we have to protect the precious environment, the greenery, the agriculture. All this needs to be protected. So we need to hire local businesses who understand what's going on. They touted this and stuff, and they were bragging about the fact that they would accomplish this. We look forward to working with them, the USACE, the Army Corps of Engineering, in ensuring that our local workforce is incorporated in the effort, including our local contractors that Mayor said, Bisson told Spectrum News on August 30th. There will be a focusing on utilizing local businesses and paying prevailing wages. Debris removal effort, Green said on August 29th. The details of future debris removal contracts between the Army Corps of Engineer and ECC on Maui will only be made public when the awards are announced, Brown said. ECC was also contracted to remove the Kailua debris in October, $5.7 million. Now, this is something I wanted to highlight. I know this might not be a juicy story, right? I know a lot of people are still concerned about what's happening with the children. That kind of story that seems to be kept alive. We haven't been able to run, and, my documentary is coming out soon. George is still working on it, but we have a lot of footage that we went there for the last 6 days, 100 days after the fire. We didn't see a lot of people talking about the children, so we weren't able to confirm or deny that stuff. But it seems to be something that we don't know for sure. I know there's a lot of people who are still kind of sticking on to it wasn't a natural disaster. It was an energy weapon. It was a laser. There's children missing. Maybe they were trafficked. I don't know. I can't answer those questions. I didn't experience that. And I talked to a lot of people, made a lot of connections. I can tell you this much, that all the citizens I talked to, all the survivors I talked to were very, very pissed off about one thing in particular. There's no transparency, not from their local government, not from the representative, not from the mayor, not from the governor, not from anybody, right? And there are some lawmakers in Hawaii that I saw sticking up and standing up and talking for the people, and even they have criticism for some people. We have a great interview in the documentary, a woman named Ellie Cochran, who happens to be the state assembly representative for Lahaina. So we went to she distribution zone that was closed down, talked about that, but talked about the fire itself. We talked about the rebuilding process, and the rebuilding process seems to not exist. They're not rebuilding. They're dragging their feet. And all the decisions they're making are not in the public domain. The people don't know. They're not getting their answers to the questions they asked. A lot of people have questions about the disaster itself. They're not getting those answers. A lot of people have questions about the rebuilding process and how they're handling the contractors. They're not getting the answers themselves. They're doing so many things in the dark, right? So this here is Dr. Lauren Pang, who lives on the island. He's very much involved with the local governments and whatnot. He has worked for the WHO and Congress before, as an expert when it came to certain things during the COVID, like ivermectin, not. But what he is talking about, I'm not going to show this thing. I just have a small clip. Seems to be the ongoing story that keeps getting told out there. The Sunshine Law, I'll mention those. And I will talk about what a Sunshine Law is mainly, it's very important that everything is done in the purview of the decision that's made. In other words, you bring the groups in, they talk about what's going on, but then the community decides. And that's not happening in Maui. Take a listen to Dr. Pang and what he has to say. This is only a little small taste. Dr. Pang, we talked about soil tack and the process in that. We talked about the water process and the sewage We talked about all that, but once again, Dr. Pang said more than anything, the problem is that they're doing things behind closed doors. But he was very careful to do that, and that's why I kind of laughed, because he didn't want to completely come out there and throw the government and the elected officials under the bus. He wanted to be fair about it, and that's what I loved about the interview with Dr. Pang. Take a watch at this.
Resurrect the process for dealing with decisions. Sunshine law, fairness.
That's your message?
Yeah, even if you do it right, there's always be suspicion. Well, why did you have to do it in private? Well, I don't know. Because it was easier, faster? I don't know about that anymore.
Is that what's going on, though?
I don't know. I haven't been invited to a lot of these open processes.
Gotcha. Dr. Pang, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So there it was, Dr. Pang. We can get him off the screen. Yeah, beautiful. He was talking about sunshine laws. What is the meaning of a sunshine law? Sunshine laws, you see how I did that for you guys? Nice and orange and yellow for you guys, because I love you out there. Are regulations requiring public disclosure of government agency meetings and records. Sunshine laws require specific businesses and government agencies to maintain transparency and disclose their activities to the public. And that's the big problem that's going on. Even when it comes to the contractors of who's getting the cleanup, right? Because if you have a situation like you do in Lahaina and Maui, that you want to make sure every dollar is used to go to the citizens, the cleanup, the whole 9 yards, to that. You don't want to have any waste whatsoever. If there are contracts being given out, subcontractors in particular, to companies that are off the island, you're breaking protocol. You're pretty much lying to the public when you say that you're going to hire local subcontractors, but you're bringing people in from elsewhere. You can also be greasing the wheel. You don't know how that money's spent. So it's very, very important that it happens. And it really is a because companies over here, right, that are not being disclosed in who they are. And the locals are leaving the island every day. You can see this. I was at this beach, guys. I went to this area right over here. This is the Lahaina Strand. This is where you walk down. It says fishing for Lahaina. Every day, a local family moves away. Every day, a local family moves away. Now, I don't want to trash anybody's reporting out there, but I said this from the get-go. This is the long game. It's going to be years for this story to play out. They're still hunkering down on this beach because they haven't found a solution yet. We're going to talk more about Tuesday, about the housing issue in Maui, right? Because it is still serious and going on. And FEMA has been floating this rhetoric or this narrative that they found housing for everybody qualified. But the only problem is how many people are qualified. Close to 6,000 people are displaced, or a little bit over 6,000, I think. And they're kind of out there going, yeah, they found this housing. But it's true. I got more information on that. I'll bring it on Tuesday. But this is the biggest issue. And I said, this is not going to be a gotcha story. Somebody's not going to come and find the smoking gun. It was decades of water mismanagement, pretty much turning Lahaina into a tinderbox. And that needs to come into play here. It didn't just happen overnight. Lahaina caught on fire like a flamethrower. It burned through everything. And those conditions were set years in the making. And a lot of people talk about it. You know, water was, directed to other places. I had this whole conversation with Ellie Cochran, and the way they got around it, the state and the local officials and the county was like, okay, the water's owned by you, the citizens, but the pipes and the movement of the water, that's owned by a private interest. So water diversion for years in Lahaina. And it's crazy because when you're in Lahaina and you're at the site by the fire, you look over your shoulder and you can see on the other side of the island, the mountains is probably one of the most wettest, dampest place on the earth. You can see the moisture on top of the mountains and whatnot. But where you're at in Lahaina, it's as dry as can be. So this thing is very, very important. The fact that they're not disclosing who they're using. We don't know if all the local businesses are getting the benefit there. And it's important that the local businesses get the benefit. You can see it. Like if all the locals are involved with cleanup and they had small homes for them there while they're cleaning up, the most important thing is they get to stay there. Not just be part of the whole rebuilding process, but they get to stay there. But right now, every day, a local family moves away. And that's what we mean by an orchestrated, well-managed gentrification of Lahaina. We do have another video here I'm going to play right now because this is the juicy part, right? This is the part where it gets people going because they want to see those gotcha moments. I just think it's sad what the people are going through over here in Lahaina. Let's play this video right here. You have it up, Jamie? All right. Let's go full screen on that and take a look. Here we are.
I get asked all the time on TikTok, how's the rebuilding going in Lahaina? Well, see for yourself. What is it, 5 months after the fire? Nothing's been done. No rebuilding. They put up some beautiful kids paintings right here to color, to make it nice and bright with colors. But no rebuilding has started whatsoever. Meanwhile, people still have to pay mortgages and are getting eviction notices, even though their house burned down and they haven't gotten money from the insurance company yet because they're dragging their butts. Ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And it's sad. I heard a lot of people, and there was a lot of people who didn't want to go on camera when they were talking about this because they didn't want to ruffle any feathers. But there were, you can take it down. There were insurance companies that weren't honoring the people's contracts or their policies because the people didn't have the proper paperwork to show them because guess what? They were burnt down in the fire. So we have a lot of that going on. There's a lot of, I would say, undocumented workers that lived in Lahaina, a lot of Latinos, a lot of Filipinos. There was locals there, the indigenous from when the kingdom had the capital right there in Lahaina. So Lahaina was very special. A lot of people didn't stay in Lahaina. They stayed outside of Lahaina, either north or south of it on those towns, and then went into Lahaina because it was historic down by the water on Front Street. So it really is a shame of what's going on there because these people have been forgotten. There's a big suicide problem that's been going on, and they're kind of whitewashing it and saying, well, it's drug usage and whatnot. But a lot of people were just using drugs as a vessel to end their life because they had nothing left. They didn't have a home to go to. They were about to be thrown out of their hotel. They had nothing to go to. They didn't know what to do. Some people have lost family members. Some people have lost loved ones, old ones. One thing I can confirm is that a lot of people that were lost were older people, right? Tia, aunt, in Latin America, right? That's what they call it, a lot of old folks. And can you imagine just leaving your house one day, thinking that you'll be back and come back that night, but never, ever return? And a lot of places, they haven't been let back into the zone because the bureaucracy is so thick that it's just slowing everything down. And what you witnessed over there, and when you saw that, there are areas you could see above the fence. That's what I witnessed when I was there. I was saying, where are the Army Corps of Engineers? Where's their hardware? Where are the tractors? Where are the trailers? Why don't we figure out what's what? How do we clean up this debris? And there are legitimate questions. Dr. Pang talked about them in my interview, Dr. Lauren Pang, about when you do clean up these ashes, what does it do when it kicks in the air? How do we control it? But this should have been done quickly, and it's not been done in a lot of the zones. There's issues all across the board, but the biggest issue, the lack of transparency. YouTube still plays those crazy games where they like to unsubscribe people for whatever reason. I don't know if it's part of an algorithm or whatnot, but make sure you're subscribed and make sure you hit that bell and like, share, subscribe to the show. We're going to have this whole show clipped up. We're going to do it the same way we've been doing it on the Convo Couch for many years. We do a whole show, a live show, and then we have certain segments. We're going to repost the segments out there so you can share the shorter versions of the subjects that you like or that you want to share. And that's the most important thing you can do. A lot of us don't have any coin to spare, but we can share, right? That rhymed. We don't have any coin to spare, but we can share. So do me a favor and share.